first game will be played without sideboards, and then sideboarding will happen for the remaining 2 to 4 games.
It's very easy to say this matchup should be excellent for Tron, but remember, Richard won the matchup in the quarterfinals, 3-1. 3 of those 4 games he was on the draw, and he was playing against a deck with 4 copies of Rending Volley in the sideboard.
All right, so we go over there. Both players trade lands to start. Ali has a copy of Urza's Mine. Remember, he's trying to get all 3 Urza pieces in play. So Tower and Relic of Progenitus are played. So he has 2 down, 1 to go. If you look at his hand, he does have a lot of the instruments he's looking for here. He has it looks like a Ugin in his hand to build up to. I think he has the Sylvan Scrying as well for the 3rd Tron piece, but doesn't have the green source just yet.
Yeah, which can come up from time to time. Now, there are a lot of Chromatic Stars and Chromatic Spheres to help with the mana fixing issue, but Ali's got a lot of draws, and this is really going to set him back.
Yeah, and this is something that we see Merfolk. It's going to be a copy of Spreading Seas on the Urza's Mine. So Ali now has Island and Tower. Richard draws a card off it. That will stop Ali from getting to that Ugin, certainly, if Richard can keep him off of Tron. You see Ali drew off Relic of Progenitus and drew for the turn. His 2 cards were a Forest and an Expedition map, so he'll get to start rebuilding Tron as he makes land drops.
Yeah, this is the type of draw where if Richard was on the play with some pressure, Ali would have some real difficulty here. With that said, Ali can still make his land drops, slowly assemble Tron, and especially now with Oblivion Stone in play, has a lot of control over the way the game gets paced.
Yeah, so Ali tapping through for Oblivion Stone. Remember, if he sacrifices that, the Spreading Seas will fall off, and Ali will once again have an Urza's Mine. He only needs 5 mana to activate it. He has lands 4 and 5 in hand, so that should happen. So you go over to Richard. He's going to try to get some creatures on the board and starts with Silvergill Adept.
Yeah. Ali is under essentially no pressure right now, so he can take his time here, just make his land drops, go up to 5, blow up the O-Stone, removing the Spreading Seas along with all of Richard's other permanents. Should have Tron online, and then we take it from there.
Yeah. Draw turn for Ali is a copy of Emrakul. It's the one of in the deck.
Normally something you're looking to search for with the Eye of Ugin after the game gets wrapped up. Not something that you want to be drawing early on in the game.
So Ali with both Sylvan Scrying and Expedition map in his hand. He'll go with the map, and it looks like sacrifice it immediately, or rather that or play Sylvan Scrying. He's gonna go ahead and sacrifice it, looking like we'll see what he gets here. And I imagine just the 3rd Tron piece. Once he gets land 5, he can sweep the board and untap with a lot of mana.
Exactly. I think this is a pretty straightforward path here for Ali.
And there it is. It's a copy of Urza's Power Plant. And that'll be his last land. So he has all 3 pieces now. And remember that he does not get the Tron bonus just yet because the Urza's Mine has been turned into an island from Spreading Seas.
Yep.
But Ali's at 20, and Richard just has a 2-1 and a Mutavault, so that much looks really good.
In spite of Richard having the Spreading Seas here, this is getting played at Ali's pace. There's no pressure. Ali has Oblivion Stone, most likely his best card in the matchup. Yeah. He can really take his time here, play conservatively, and then blow the doors open when he's ready.
Well, that's one of the things I like about Tron is, yeah, you can keep them off Tron, but the deck is so resilient and so redundant. When you're playing cards like Ancient Stirrings, Expedition Maps, Sylvan Scrying, eventually the deck does get Tron together. You can't, it's very hard to keep them indefinitely off of it.
And that's why it's so important to be backing it up with pressure. You know, it's definitely fine to have the Spreading Seas, but as you mentioned, given enough time, Ali can work his way out of it.
Attack with Silvergill Adept will put Ali down to 18 as Richard starts to get some damage in. See how he follows up. We know he has a copy of Master of Waves that was revealed off Silvergill Adept, and it looks like that's going to be his play for the turn.
Sure, and this forces the hand on the Oblivion Stone if it wasn't already. This is a lot of pressure.
3 elementals made. Remember, there's mana symbols on his 2 creatures, and then on that Spreading Seas hanging out on Ali's side of the board. Looks like Ali, the drop turn was Chromatic Star. He'll play Ghost Quarter as his land drop. And now I think there's enough pressure that Ali will just say go. He seems to be locked into casting that Oblivion Stone.
Well, he may take the hit inside of combat if he feels like he has a hammer lock after the fact. The risk with blowing up the Oblivion Stone inside of combat is that if Richard follows up with the Spreading Seas, maybe now you're set back in terms of setting up Tron.
Richard will activate Mutavault, so he has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 13 damage. Remember, Mutavault is an elemental, so it gets pumped by Master of Waves. And we'll see if Ali wants to go to 5 here or not. And It looks like he might. Remember, Oblivion Stone will not get rid of Mutavault.
Yes. But he does have a Ghost Quarter, so even if he doesn't have a way to lock it out right now, he can always answer it down the line.
This is the big decision from Ollie. Does he want to risk another Spreading Seas from Richard Adams and save the life points, or does he want to go down to 5?
The thing is, with Sylvan Scrying in hand, Ollie can reassemble the Tron, even if there's a Spreading Seas on the follow-up.
So you're inclined then to save the life points.
Yeah, this is a pretty big hit. You know, you would have to feel like if you got to Tron next turn, you couldn't possibly lose, and there's basically no risk from taking the hit. I don't think either of those things are true necessarily. So just better to err on the side of the straightforward play.
You have to remember Oblivion Stone gets sort of non-land permanents, so the Mutavault still comes in. That deals 2 damage. And Richard does have the follow-up Spreading Seas, so while he's assembled Tron, he won't get to untap with it. You see Richard using Spreading Seas on one of the Tron pieces. He has to decide which one. Tower's usually the one you go for because it makes more mana, but then again, there was one sitting on mine, so it mucks things up a bit.
Yep. It doesn't matter too much. It usually just, okay, the power plant.
He's going to go for a power plant because that's the one that Ollie Expedition mapped for.
Okay, sure. And just hope that if Ollie has to reassemble Tron via naturally drawing it, he's less likely to do it via power plant than the other options.
Right, maybe he had extra copies of some of them in his hand. It wouldn't have been power plant.
Right.
But he even said, because of that Sylvan Scrying in hand, Ollie can scry, and he still gets Ugin this turn.
Yep.
And I imagine that's what he's going to do. See, Forest and Ghost Quarter, they're going to be used to cast what looks like Sylvan Scrying. He can re-find another power plant.
Yep. So he essentially goes to 8 mana here.
And there we are, Sylvan Scrying. This has got to be for Urza's power plant, I imagine.
Yep. This feels like a pretty straightforward. Assemble Tron, cast Ugin, and probably move on to the next one not too long after that.
And we'll see whether or not Richard wants to sacrifice the Curse Catcher to get a man of Ollie's. I believe he's choosing not to.
Well, he can't use it to interact with any of the Planeswalkers.
Right.
And it only stops 1 mana this turn. You're not even making Ollie tap a Tron piece. So he still goes to 7. He can still cast Karn or Wormcoil. So, you know, I think you just have to keep your Curse Catcher in play.
So Urza's power plant will be gotten. You notice there's different art there from Antiquities, 4 arts for each of the pieces. They are still the same cards. And 8 mana, looks like it will be Ugin the Spirit Dragon from Ollie. There you go, the Fate Reforged Planeswalker. Going to tick up, looks like to 10, or rather to 9, and going to shoot down Curse Catcher.
Yep. And now, if Richard plays threats one at a time, Lightning Bolt chews him up. If he plays out a bunch of stuff, Ugin's minus power chews him up. There's no way for Richard to get this card off the table.
Yeah, at 9, a 16 life seems too safe a number for Richard to come back from this.
Yeah, I mean, Richard has to make effort keeping Ugin from going ultimate also. So he can't just be attacking Ollie with the Mutavault, and Ollie has a Ghost Quarter in play to break that up whenever he feels like it.
Yeah, and remember, it's not like Ollie's going to stop making threats either. He has an Emrakul in hand, currently has 10 mana, and with a card like Ancient Strings in hand, he may just be 2 turns away from casting the Eldrazi. Master of Waves for Richard Adams. It will make 2 elementals, 1 for the Master and 1 for the Spreading Seas. Then he will activate Mutavault, see where he wants to go with this. He did the Master of Waves first, so that the Mutavault would be a 3/3. 3 at Ugin or 3 at Ollie. Nothing looks great here.
No.
And here's the attack. We'll see where it's going. Now, pointing out that it's a 3/3 thanks to Master of Waves. It looks like this is just at Ollie's life total.
Sure. It's about the same either way, I feel like.
Here's a pass. to Ali. His draw for the turn was a copy of Karn Liberated.
The combo.
Sure. More big planeswalkers that Ali is able to cast. And the threats are just hitting too hard here.
Yeah, there's just a big difference between Curse Catcher and Karn. Once we get to this stage of the game, Richard can't really play back.
Karn into play. He'll use it to exile a Mutavault. It's like Ugin will shoot down the Master of Waves. He's just grinding down Richard's permanents. Casts Chromatic Star, it looks like. And passes his turn. Land for the turn was Grove of the Burn Willows.
Yeah, and Ali, even with a Ghost Quarter left over to check the other Mutavault.
Yeah, Richard has nothing. See here, so this is the kind of game that Ali wants to be playing. It really felt like the turning point was Oblivion Stone.
Yeah, Richard's draw was a little bit slow and was leaning on Spreading Seas to disrupt Ali's development. Oblivion Stone was something Ali could naturally cast, get to 5 mana. It constricted Richard's development, allowed Ali to pretty easily reassemble Tron, and now we're here.
Ali with 3 copies of Oblivion Stone. You see 3 or 4 in these lists. Won't have an extra one after the sideboard, so just has the 3. And we are on to game 2. Ali Antrazi takes the first game of the 5-game set between Richard Adams and himself. Winner will go on to the finals of the Invitational, but now we will sideboard, and this is where things will change the most, I guess, between the first game and the other ones.
Well, Richard's got some action here. 2 copies of Spellskite, 3 Tiebiter Mage, a Monastery Siege, 2 Seize Claim, 2 Dispels, Hibernation, Spell Pierce, Swan Song, Unified Will. I think Seize Claim, backed up by some of these counter spells, is a pretty solid package. Spell Pierce may be okay on the play. It does have moments of being good on the early turns. It sounds funny to say because Tron is all about generating a boatload of mana.
Making them pay 2 more is good for maybe a turn.
Right, but if you tag Expedition Map, Sylvan Scrying early on in the game, especially backed up by the Seize Claims, you might be able to keep Ali from assembling Tron. I think the Unified Wills are solid in this matchup too. Sometimes Ali's going to have hands that only really have 1 payoff card. And
yeah, well, Unified Will should more or less, so it is counter spell if you control more creatures than the other player. Well, that should almost always be true in these games.
If it's not true, Richard's already lost.
Right, so a 2-mana counter spell, that's going to be great against this kind of ramp style deck. Seize Claim, you mentioned it before, those who don't know, it's a 1-mana blue enchantment that just turns a land into an island. You don't get to draw a card, so it's not Spreading Seas that way, but additional Spreading Seas are pretty welcome here.
Yeah, and I think that he also may bring in the Swan Song as well. The issue here is just there are some counter spells, but this sideboard is pretty light on answers to Oblivion Stone. He has to kind of counter it. And even the Mana Disruption package doesn't really prevent Ali realistically from Oblivion Stone being a factor. And in fact, magnifies the problem because now there's more stuff in play that gets blown up. That said, he does become better equipped against the other elements of Ali's deck because he's good at disrupting Tron, and he's got some counters for the top end if Ali happens to get there.
All right, so looking at Ali's sideboard, the first thing he has 3 copies of Rending Volley. That's 1-mana red spell that will deal 4 to a blue creature. It's uncounterable. Because it goes to blue creatures, it couldn't even be spell-skited. It seems pretty excellent in the matchup.
Ali's got a lot of good options. The question is just how much does he want to sideboard? I think there's an argument for Rending Volley. Nature's Claim breaks up the Spreading Seas, Seize Claim kind of stuff. Also blows up Aether Vial, 4 copies of that in Richard's deck. I don't think this is necessarily a Boyle matchup, but Richard's mana base is a lot of islands. Boyle's going to have spots of being spectacular, especially if you have Nature's Claim to answer Aether Vial. And this could be a matchup where Ali wants Thragtusk as well because it's just so big and so good at brawling. My instinct is no, because Richard does have the ability to turn a lot of Ali's lands into islands, and he has a lot of island walking. So I don't think Thragtusk is a very effective blocker in this matchup.
I suspect that the Thragtusk is a trap. You'd say, against some creature decks, it can be good, especially the more red-oriented style decks. But in this matchup, Richard's creatures, Ali needs to be killing Richard's creatures, not trying to fight them in combat.
Exactly. But the other hand, in the quarterfinals, Ali did bring in Thragtusk against Abzan Company. And I think that Thragtusk is likely to be better here than in that matchup. So if you want it against Abzan Company, possibly Ali brings it in. The issue with all this is we're looking now at 4, 8, 11 cards realistically. Even the extra Ghost Quarter does some work against Mutavault. And I just don't think there's room to bring all of this in. So I think the Rending Volleys and the Nature's Claims are for sure coming in. And then past that, maybe Thragtusk, maybe Boyle.
Yeah, there are some things in his main deck that he can get away from. He has some copies of Relic of Progenitus in the main deck, and he may not use all of those.
The Emrakul is a pretty easy cut. I feel like the Spellskite is a pretty easy cut. There are some options here, but we're looking at potentially a lot of sideboard cards and not that much easy to make space.
Well, cutting the cards like Chromatic Sphere, Star, Expedition Map, and Sylvan Scrying are dangerous in this deck because that really is the core of how it puts together what it does.
Exactly. You can't get away from your mana fixing, especially against an opponent who's going to be bringing in Seas Claim on top of Spreading Seas. You need the ability to make as much colored mana for your Ancient Stirrings and Sylvan Scryings as you can really get your hands on.
Yeah, absolutely. Richard will be going at Ollie's mana base. Like I said, it will be interesting to see if he goes for Boil. It's so tempting against a deck that's nearly all islands to board in a card like that. I mean, 15 islands, 4 Mutavaults, and a Cavern of Souls. But at the same time, I just don't think blowing up Richard's lands does much.
And also, if Richard is turning Ollie's lands into islands, that also makes
really
Boils,
can't blow up his own lands.
That makes Boil quite a bit worse.
That certainly is a good point. So one thing, noticing our pins here, we have Star City Games Game Night. This is something that we've been doing. We premiered it just about toward the end of last year. So what this is at your local store, you can become a StarCityGames.com game night, which means it'll be the regular tournament, but we will have, every month will feature new tokens and pins to be given away as prizes for the event. You see this month, it's the bunny pin. So if you see those on our jackets, you can get that for playing in a game night event, as well as bunny creature tokens here. As you see the full art of the picture featured on the cards.
Yeah, absolutely. And in July, which is too late to get signed up for, we have the Piglet, but it is not too late to get signed up for the Monkey Pin. In August, you can head over to StarCityGames.com/game night for more information. You can contact your organized play representative if you're looking to bring this to your store, and you can also search the website to find the game night closest to you.
Richard Adams will be on the play for game number 2. We did not see an Aether Vial draw that last game, and Aether Vial, one of the best. This is really the best Aether Vial deck in Modern.
Well, we've seen this as an Aether Vial deck in Legacy, and it's much the same tools. This format is a little less counterspell dense than Legacy, but Aether Vial is still quite potent. A lot of these things are very good to put in at instant speed. They muck up combat. Phantasmal Image is a pretty sweet card to have access to. Only one copy in Richard's list. Sometimes you see a little bit more than that, but it is a very effective Aether Vial deck. Another card that people, when Wizards made the initial ban list, just assumed that card was going to get banned. It's had a history of being powerful in extended formats. It shows up in good Legacy decks, but it's turned out to be an acceptable card.
Yeah, we see it sometimes as things like Eternal Command or Merfolk. Both play it in Modern.
It shows up a little bit. It shows up a little bit for specific decks, but it's certainly not at the same power level as it was in its standard format back in the day or in Legacy right now. Looks like Ollie's going down to 6.
Yeah, Richard sympathizing, laying out his cards.
The frowny face is facing Ollie, so it's not sure if that's sympathy or rubbing it in. I would believe either interpretation. Richard seems like a man sending his condolences, though, so I don't know.
I do like that he's matched his sleeves with his hair for the event.
Yeah.
And I choose to believe that that's an intentional decision, which
for sure
is great.
These things like this are rarely an accident. Ollie's phone blowing up a little bit. Got to handle that.
All those parts of it.
This feels like a very play-draw biased matchup to me.
Well, both decks are non-interactive. So one thing, granted they're not combo decks per se, but when you get these decks that are, going by each other, then you start talking about how fast, what's the goldfish turn of the deck. So yeah, being on the play is being up a turn, and that's going to matter more and more in these matchups.
Exactly. Both of these players, their plan for the matchup is prevent you from executing your game plan.
Maybe just not even that. Maybe it's just do my thing. I mean, there's a little bit of that. Ollie has his O-Stones, Richard has his Spreading Seas, but still, at the end of the day, Richard's going to make creatures, and Ollie's going to make planeswalkers. Yeah. And one guy's going to try to do it first.
Richard's mode of interaction is you can't play your spells. Ollie's mode of interaction is none of your spells matter.
And I still feel a lot of pressure on Oblivion Stone in this matchup. If Ollie can continue to get them down, you saw there, he played Oblivion Stone on 3, activated on 5, no Tron on either side of it, but that was just still too much for Richard.
Yeah.
And this game, a great start from Richard. It's going to be Mutavault into Aether Vial.
Yeah, very powerful opening, especially on the play. And you see Pyroclasm in Ollie's hand. This is a card that gets a lot worse against Aether Vial because Richard has the ability to, you know, ship in a Lord at instant speed and turn a Pyroclasm that would have killed his entire board into basically nothing.
So Richard has a lot of creatures of 2 drops that give all his creatures +1/+1. So if he casts 1 and has 1 in his hand while his Aether Vial is on 2, the Pyroclasm is never going to work.
Yeah.
So Aether Vial ticks up to 1, and for Richard, his turn will be to attack with Mutavault. Put Ollie down to 18.
That's pretty good news for Ollie here that he's not getting tagged by one of the make your land into an island effects.
Yeah, on Ollie's side, he played a turn 1 Power Plant. He has Urza's Tower and Expedition Map in play, so that's going to be turn 3 Tron. Has Sylvan Scrying, 2 more Tron pieces, and a Pyroclasm. I don't know if he has the payoff spell hiding at the back there. It looks like he has a copy of Ugin the Spirit Dragon.
But this is a hand that even something like Unified Will can potentially give Richard a lot of play, even if Ollie is able to assemble Tron uncontested.
So because Ollie, I don't know what his last 2 Tron pieces are. I believe they are 2 more copies of the Power Plant, so his map will have to get the mine. But if that wasn't the case, I mean, he also has Sylvan Scrying in hand, so I think, you know, he can use Eye of Ugin with one of these land finders to find himself extra business spells if Richard is able to counter the Ugin. You see, for Richard, now that he sees the threat of turn 3 Tron assembled, he's going to use Spreading Seas on this turn.
Yep. Very important.
And if you're Ollie, you're hoping he picks the Power Plant. And he does. Ollie has 2 more copies of Power Plant in hand, no more copies of Tower.
Yep. But the thing is, you know, you're in one of those spots where it feels just like you're flipping coins on Richard's side of the table.
You are.
You might as well hit the tower because if Ollie does assemble Tron through other pieces, the tower makes 3 instead of 2 mana. So
right. Then again, if you think you have a read on him,
yeah, but that's
I think it's reasonable. He did pick wrong here though, and that was his play for the turn. It cost him his whole turn. So it still feels like a win for Ollie.
I mean, Ollie's still behind in terms of some degree of his development. He can't just go turn 3 Tron. So even though he can reassemble, this is still fine for Richard, but he needs to follow up with more of this kind of stuff.
So for Ollie, the Expedition Map's actually going to find a copy of Grove of the Burn Willows. So that will be a green mana source for him to use his Sylvan Scrying and his red mana for his Pyroclasm.
Yep.
Though you have to wonder where that Aether Vial is sitting at too, if Pyroclasm is even going to be worth a card in this game.
It seems unlikely, and that's another card that's on Richard's radar. Ollie might get to kill one thing with it. That wouldn't surprise me, but it's not going to blow Richard out of this game, most likely.
Chromatic Sphere, the draw for Ollie. And he'll start with that. Sphere into play. He'll use the Sphere off of Urza's Tower to create green mana and draw a card. Draws Wormcoil Engine. That's a pretty powerful draw here.
Yeah, it is one of his better payoffs in the matchup.
And because that Sphere, Ollie actually can make Tron a turn earlier. He replayed a Power Plant and then used the green mana to use Sylvan Scrying. So this is going to go find Urza's Mine, and he'll be Tron on turn 4 for Ollie, despite that Spreading Seas. Does Richard have something like one of the Spell Pierces here? No, he does not.
Yeah, there's exactly 1 copy in his sideboard. And I would be surprised if he brought it in, but not stunned. Again, early on in the game, Spell Pierce can be pretty good against Tron.
So mine into hand, and then he'll pass the turn. Now Richard will start to playing Merfolk through the Aether Vial. The first one is Silvergill Adept. That will draw him a card. That's a good one. I think one that Ollie wants to see. It's not a Lord.
Although it's potentially more looks at Seas Claim or Spreading Seas.
Yeah, can he keep him off it? You see Monastery Siege in Richard's hand. So he keeps his Aether Vial on 2. And that, I imagine we'll just see him park Aether Vials there.
Yeah. There is Marrow Regery and Master of Waves, so there's some argument to go up, but 2 is where the bulk of the Merfolk live.
And what can his follow-up be? Richard has done a decent job of being disruptive these games, but he has not been fast with his threats.
Yep. And this game, it may be okay because Ali hasn't found Oblivion Stone yet. And as long as Ali does not find Oblivion Stone, he can play this sort of game.
It's going to be Master of Waves from Richard and then a Master Waves from the Aether Vial. And this is exactly the situation we were talking about, how Aether Vial can let him put Lords on the table too quickly to be Pyroclasm. So he activates Mutavault, and suddenly the attack is for 8. It's a 4/4 Mutavault and a 4/3 Silvergill Adept. And remember, when Ali passed the turn, Richard had nothing in play. And this is one of the real strengths of Merfolk.
The problem here is that Ali, if he reassembles Tron, can cast Ugin and Richard goes from everything to nothing.
And Ali can do just that. Here's the Tron piece. Here's the Spirit Dragon. It can -2 kill everything, including the Spreading Seas. And that's going to be pain for our Richard. Now, he does actually have 2 Mutavaults.
The problem is that Ugin goes down to 5 in the event that he minuses for 2. And then the 2 Mutavaults in play are not enough to finish off Ugin.
Yeah, Richard's going to have to go with the life total instead. But remember, Ali has that Wormcoil Engine waiting in his hand.
Now, Mutavault there's still some hope here. And remember that Richard gets to keep the Aether Vial as well, as that's colorless.
Right, so if Richard has, say, another Lord and can put a Lord into play with his Aether Vial and activate both Mutavaults, Ali will be down to 4, and suddenly we're still playing. Vapor Snag, it looks like it was drawn. That will be good. Richard doesn't know it, but it's going to have a use here. Here's another Mutavault for Richard. That's fine. These multiple Mutavaults are a real threat.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. If he has another land in hand, and I believe he has Vapor Snag, if Ali's plan here is play Wormcoil, hope to block, that's not going to get it done.
He's going to be dead. So the 2 Mutavaults swing, and he's going not at Ugin, but at Ali. Puts the Tron player down to 6. Leaves up that blue for Vapor Snag. For Ali's side, draws a copy of Karn Liberated. He currently has 9 mana in play. I believe he can go up to 11 with his land drop. Not enough for Karn Wormcoil. It's close.
Yeah, and Karn is also not that helpful here. I mean, it's okay.
He'll eat a Mutavault. And Ali just has to hope that Richard just isn't sneaking anything into play on step with that Aether Vial.
Yeah.
And once again, I'm saying the pressure here is, I mean, the Mutavaults are very good. Actually, Tron has difficulties dealing with this card outside of Wormcoil Engines.
Yeah, there's some Ghost Quarters and
Ugin can't answer it. Karn answers it kind of. Oblivion Stone doesn't work. Pyroclasm doesn't work. It's having just a lot of Mutavaults is a great plan. Here's Wormcoil Engine from Ali Antrazi. Play a copy of Grove of the Burn Willows. He'll pass now. Richard does have the Vapor Snag. What is Ugin going to do? I mean, just has to shoot Richard.
Yeah, there's nothing else to do here. You just bolt.
It's Ghostfire, right?
Yeah, sorry, excuse me, Ghostfire.
That was the flavor, right? Ghostfire is the future shifting of Ugin.
You know this stuff way better than I do.
I believe so. So when we have Future Sight, we grabbed a lot of things from possible future storylines, and I think Ghostfire is supposed to be a reference to. That's why Ugin has the plus ability, is because it's supposed to be Ugin's Ghostfire.
So this is a huge swing here for Ali. Richard going for the kill here with the Vapor Snag, and Ali having Nature's Claim in response.
And that's really big. Not only does he not get to bounce the Wormcoil Engine, but Ali gains 4 life. He gets both those tokens into play, and he has blockers back, and is at 10. And yeah, the Nature's Claim is great for Ali right here.
And a 3/3 is just as good as a 6/6 when it comes to containing Mutavaults. So that's a really big play. And it's possible this gives Ali a path to basically turtle up behind these tokens and use Karn alongside Ugin to grind Richard down.
Yeah, it won't take too long for him to do it either. You see, Monastery Siege is the play for Richard. We'll see what he sets it to. Actually, both there are some reasonable modes in this. Now, because Tron makes so much mana, I don't imagine he'll set it to dragons. You see here, it's on cons. Another island in play. One card remaining in Richard Adams' hand. And that Nature's Claim may have just been what Ollie needed.
This card feels a bit slow to me for the matchup, especially when Ollie's bringing in 4 copies of Nature's Claim. We'll see if he gets to get much use out of it.
I'm surprised as well to see this one still in. And for Ollie, it just seems like it'll be more defense. Another Nature's Claim in his hand. And I don't think he can have too many of those cards. Just the gain 4 mode on them is really strong.
Yeah.
Will Ollie cast Karn to join Ugin, the colorless Planeswalker duo? Won him game 1.
It seems very attractive to me to just kind of hang back on D here with your Worm Coil Engine leftovers and let the Planeswalkers take this home.
Taps for 6. Going to need to use a tower for that one. Yep, Ollie switches it up. There we go. Now it's 7. Karn Liberated is the play. So robots and dragons now. And the thing is that Richard is not able to kill either of these guys.
Yeah. I mean, more Vapor Snags could get them off the table, but the Planeswalkers themselves, they are untouched.
Yeah.
Their loyalty is just too huge.
They're both very loyal.
Yeah.
It's hard to deal with them with damage and attacking. And this thing, Ollie has resolved 3 payoff spells here with Worm Coil, Karn, and Ugin. And that's difficult for Richard to swing through. The Nature's Claim was just the turning point, though. It was, Richard had a window, Ollie had the answer.
So I think there may be an issue now where Ollie doesn't actually have a mine in play. He had a mine in his hand and got a while ago, and they've been sort of operating like that's been the case.
Oh, wow.
Because he has
Because he has the mismatched arts. You're right, he does have the mine. And I'll say that from our point of view, the bottom power plants to me look... that one to me I've always thought was a mine.
Right.
I confuse that art frequently.
Yeah, it's easy. I mean, there was a pause here, and I was, trying to suss out what exactly the problem was. And because of the mismatch, most of the time when you watch Tron players, they have the same art pieces of all of their Tron pieces.
All right,
and
yep.
Ollie was tapping those 3 for a while, and no one really knows. Several turns obviously went by. Ollie had the mine.
And some of you guys at home, I'm sure, Matt noticed that one as well. And it is difficult, right? So, like I said, I believed that was a mine. Now, what we know from watching the match is that Ollie did have a mine in his hand. Now, that's not going to matter for where the judge is concerned.
Right, but there is the question of, can we...
What can we roll?
Right, exactly.
I think at the very least, Ollie, if he will not be allowed to cast the Worm Coil Engine off the lands he has. That's
the Karn, rather.
Or the Karn, you're right.
Yeah, so we will figure out momentarily. Obviously, this is a pretty complicated situation. The judges, you saw head judge Ricky Hayashi head over there. They're sorting it out right now. And we'll see what the ruling is momentarily.
Yeah, we'll try to bring you that ruling as well when we have it. This is one of the more complicated judge calls we've had on the weekend.
Yeah, and obviously there's nothing malicious going on Ollie's side, but several turns went by with both players and people watching the match, and the judges, however, just assuming that Tron was in play. And was not. So
we have L4 Judge Ricky Hayashi head judging the tournament.
Yes. So it's in his capable hands, and we'll find out momentarily what the ruling actually is. I sort of jokingly in the quarterfinal matchup that I was covering with Cedric, Ollie kind of had his Tron pieces sort of scattered all over the board. There was Grove of the Burn Willows inserted in various spots, and I was kind of joking around, sort out your Tron pieces. But now you can see why it's a real thing, especially if you're going to be playing with mismatched art. I mean, the easiest thing is just get 4 towers, 4 power plants, and 4 mines that just all look the same. But if you're not going to do that, you got to be really careful.
I was actually thinking through my collection for Tron pieces, trying to build the, I don't have the matching ones. I'll play with the mismatched. But yeah, if you're going to do that, you need to know which one's which.
Yeah, because again, it's easy just to get that confused, particularly that one power plant artwork.
That's one gets me. Yeah,
it looks like a mine. It looks like an image being shot underground, and so we'll see momentarily how it all.
The towers are easy. They look like they're all towers.
Right.
To be fair, one of the mines is a picture of a tower. It's not an Urza-esque tower, but they're not all straightforward which ones they are.
Yeah,
I think that can be a problem.
The mine artwork does look like a tower, but if you have the mine and the tower next to each other, you can kind of tell, okay, this one's a tower and this one's a mine. So
you could just play with the core set ones.
Yes.
There's only one art in the core sets.
Right. That's the easiest thing to do, probably. Yeah. So obviously, it's unfortunate this has happened. I don't believe there was any malicious intent, but the game state obviously has been changed significantly by this.
Yeah, that's going to be, there will be a ruling on that one. And like I said, we'll try to bring you as much of that ruling as we can, because that's, a lot of times when I play a lot of tournament Magic, there are lots of fixes where I'll be like, okay, I'm not a judge myself, so I never like to say I know what will happen. I can say, in my experience, I'm pretty certain this is what always seems to happen. The judge is going to give him a warning, he'll shuffle his deck. I actually don't know how this one's going to resolve. I don't know about, this one, I haven't played enough matches to say for certain how it will resolve.
Right, this is an odd one. So again, we will see how this all shakes out here in a bit. It may take a little while, but probably the easiest thing to do for most of you watching at home, if there's a lesson to be learned from here, is just get all Tron pieces. Just get all matching Tron pieces. Easiest thing to do.
Okay, so we're going to bring you back to the match here, and we'll see what the ruling has been.
I believe the ruling that we have is...
The game state is... So here's the ruling. We'll be making an official statement on this as well. You see our head judge over there in red behind the match. Both players, first of all, given warnings for failure to maintain game state. And that one you'd expect. The judge rewinded as far back as he felt he could do reasonably.
Yep.
He wind back to the last, and for that what he said is, okay, the Karn is not accepted as a play.
Yep.
So you see Ali now has made his land drop for the turn, which was the copy. So the Karn that Ali tried to play was put back in his hand. He said, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. Ali then continues with his turn. Ali plays the mine from his hand, plays Karn. So people wondering, does that mean a player, quote, gets away with something? So what the judge actually does here, and I want to talk about this, is that so that's the way to fix the game state. Now the judge asks a separate question, which says, was this intentional? And that's going to be a point. And that's something which a judge gets from talking to the players and makes a decision on. And this would suggest that no, he does not believe this was an intentional malicious act on Ali's part, and which is why he receives a warning and not a further upgraded penalty.
Right. This would be a pretty insane gambit for Ali to run in this spot, since he actually had the Tron pieces the whole time.
Right. I mean, from Richard's side, we know that, and you see Ali will then take the game here on this attack.
Yep.
So I think it's got to be a bad feeling from Richard's side. You feel like Ali got away with one. I think some consolation, which he doesn't know yet, is when he goes back and watches the match, yes, Ali had Tron the entire time.
Right, yeah.
It's not that Ali didn't have it and then, pulled a fast one on him.
Well, what's the frustrating part if you're in Richard's position is if you notice that right away, the split second it happens, maybe in that spot, Ali, he plays his second power plant, he goes to tap for something, and you say, no, you can't do that because you don't have Tron in play. And that essentially, that time walk allows you to win the game. In terms of a ruling perspective, I think it's sort of like, yeah, of course it's a little sloppy and a little bit frustrating, but it wasn't like the outcome of the game got changed in a way that it shouldn't have based on the tools that Ali had at his disposal. If I'm in Richard's position, if I'm annoyed with myself for not seeing the mistake initially, because then you actually might get an advantage from it. Ali can't play, his Worm Coil on one of those critical turns or his Ugin, and you're going to game 3 split instead of Ali up 2-0.
Right, so that said, though, we are going to game 3, Ali Antrazi up 2-0 over Richard Adams. Richard will be back on the play. It will be a repeat of game number 2, post-board, Merfolk on the play. Now, we saw what I felt was a lot stronger of a game there from Richard. Okay, he had a turn 1 Aether Vial, which I think he wants in the matchup. He had multiple Mutavaults, which is very important. But at the end of the day, it still didn't seem like enough.
Well, the problem is that Ali has been threatening. In that game, he threatened turn 3 Tron and was actually pretty redundant in his ability to have Tron. So Richard has to spend a turn casting Spreading Seas on an early developmental turn. I think in Richard's perspective, in an ideal world, what you're doing is get some stuff in play, then hit you with Seas Claim or Spreading Seas, attack you down to lethal in a couple of turns before you can really get back into the game.
Ollie did have turn 3 Tron, and then when Spreading Seas happened, Ollie had turn 4 Tron. So Richard didn't really actually set him back. He traded a turn of his own for a turn of Ollie's.
Exactly. Richard needs to be in a position where he's ahead, and then exchanging his turn for Ollie's turn is really powerful. The time walk is better when you're ahead. And if Richard is able to disrupt his mana and Ollie can't reassemble, that's really powerful. But Ollie's hand was so redundant that game.
So it seems like it was out of Richard's control at that point, though, because Richard's draw was very good. But what we're saying is if Ollie's Tron draws are redundant enough, and I want to say, and that happens. Tron does that.
Yep.
It just seems like it's going to be hard for Richard to win, even with a powerful draw.
For sure. He needs a curve, and he needs Ollie's hand to not be perfect. Also, if Ollie just doesn't have a fast Tron, at that point, the Spreading Seas and the Seas claims don't really matter all that much, especially if Ollie doesn't have Oblivion Stone. That's his way to keep his head above water in games where he doesn't have a fast Urzatron. So you can see it is the games where Ollie has Tron, some redundancy built in to fight through Seas claims and Spreading Seas, and then some powerful payoff that locks at the board like Ugin.
It's Ugin and O-Stone. It seems like if he has redundant Tron plus Ugin or Oblivion Stone, I don't know what Richard does about it.
Yeah, there's only... Richard's got a game plan. He's got a cohesive set of cards he's playing together to try to present a clock and disrupt Ollie. But at the end of the day, he's playing with a bunch of 2/2s for 2. And if Ollie's getting to 7 or 8 mana on the 3rd and 4th turn and playing good 7 and 8 mana cards, there's only so much your 2/2s for 2 are going to do.
So we'll be heading to game 3. Richard's going to have to pull off the full sweep to get through here.
Yes, and now in this quarterfinal matchup, he was playing against an opponent with a 4th copy of Rending Volley instead of just the 3, and he won the match 3-1, and he was on the draw for 3 of those 4 games. He was the 8th seed, and his opponent only won 1 of the games. So Richard has definitely shown that he can win this matchup on the draw. It's just going to be tough to do it twice.
All right, so players drawing here. Game 3 between Richard Adams and Ollie Antrazi. Winner will go to the finals, where this is our first semifinal. At the conclusion of this, Cedric and I will bring you the other semifinal between Chris Van Meter and Josh Ravitz. So we start out Richard on the play again with a turn 1 Aether Vial. This time it's off Island instead of Mutavault. But still powerful. On Ollie's side, it's a land-heavy hand, I believe. He has double Oblivion Stone in it and a Pyroclasm, though. So Ollie's looking to, instead of powering out big things quickly, it's looking like he's on a plan to destroy all the creatures.
Yep. Although that's a lot slower if he doesn't have Tron involved.
Richard, the Pyroclasm will still be good.
Yeah, although it does get a little bit worse in the face of Aether Vial, depending on what Richard's draw looks like. But we've seen Richard kill on the 4th turn. So Oblivion Zone on the draw, without being supplemented by Urzatron, may not help Ollie if Richard's draw is very good.
All right, so start Grove of the Burn Willows from Ollie. So no turn 3 Tron, as his first land wasn't a Tron piece. And it will be Ancient Stirrings. He's deciding actually between Nature's Claim and Ancient Stirrings here. This is a difficult spot. He'll go with Stirrings. And I think that's right. So he doesn't really have to Nature's Claim until the next turn.
Exactly. The worst case scenario is Richard gets to Vial and a Curse Catcher for free, if those are even in his deck still. I don't think Ollie cares that much about that, and it's just better to have more information to work with to get a sense of when you're going to be setting up Tron.
So there's another Grove, a Urza's Tower, a Chromatic Star. It looks like Ollie has brought in the Thrag Tusks in this matchup.
And that does not surprise me because he brought them in the quarterfinal matchup where I feel like they were more poorly positioned than they are here. I don't think Thrag Tusk is great by any stretch of the imagination. Richard has a lot of Island Walk effects and so forth.
I don't... If you're going to board in Thrag Tusk in all these matchups, I'm not sure why you don't just play them in the main deck.
Well, there's, at some point you're playing against more disruption to your mana, and having some things that you can kind of cast normally is helpful.
Okay, all right.
But I think that they are typically for the Jund matchup and matchups similar to that.
Yeah, now to be fair, they're actually very good against a card like Vapor Snag, which is the main removal against Richard. Thrag Tusk doesn't care about that card at all.
Yep.
On Richard's side, we see a Aether Vial up to 1 and a Lord of Atlantis. Will Ollie pull the trigger on Pyroclasm just off that Lord? He also would like to Nature's Claim. He has a decision here, as if he lets Ollie get a second Lord on the board, this Clasm will be no good.
Yeah, I'm happy casting Pyroclasm here, especially in the face of Lord of Atlantis. It's likely this Pyroclasm goes south fast, so just trade 1 for 1. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't cast the Clasm now, it's never going to be cast.
Yeah.
So keeps the trades 2-drop for 2-drop. We go back over to Richard. Now the Aether Vial up to 2. And Monastery Siege from Richard. So that will help him rebuild, actually, in the face of this removal that Ollie's been bringing. So Ollie has a draw of a lot of removal, but not a lot of Tron. I like Monastery Siege quite a bit here.
Yeah, the problem is that it gets invalidated so fast once Ollie gets to his big stuff because Richard drawing 2 cards a turn and discarding 1, his best 2 cards out of 3. They're still a lot worse than whatever Ollie's casting for 6, 7, 8 mana.
We do see Urza's Mine drawn from Ollie, and he has Sylvan Scrying, which means this turn he can play Mine, Scrying, get Power Plant, and next turn have the mana to just Oblivion Stone and blow it up.
Yep.
So despite this slow start, Ollie still has a turn 4 Oblivion Stone. Or, I mean, it seems like, these 8 mana plays that, whether it's Ugin or Oblivion Stone, that just blow up all of Richard's things.
And with Nature's Claim still in hand, even if Richard has something like Sea's Claim or Spreading Seas, it's trivial for Ollie to break that up.
So, Mine in hand, and that's the tower-looking Mine.
Be careful.
Right.
Be careful.
He'll get Power Plant, and he shows, yes, this is a Power Plant. And I think this is, they look like mines. It's a rock in a vat.
Well,
Isn't that what a mine does? Aren't you doing, right?
If you look at the artwork closely, it's clearly in some sort of laboratory, or it
Right.
looks like a power plant.
But if we're breaking up rocks, that is something you do at a mine.
It's not ideal from an art direction. I would suggest putting something other than a boulder in.
I like the one that's like the bug caught in power lines getting zapped.
Perfect.
Great. Electricity, bugs, that power plant. Got it.
Yep. The cohesiveness of the art direction during antiquities was not the same process they use now. So
I like it when you have things like Whippoorwill, where he doesn't fly, and they have these things, they are with giant wings, and like, no, this doesn't fly. It's just got wings. It's like a penguin.
Right.
Plays power plant and passes. I always like those flavor things you get in early sets. You could cast Jump on your wall.
Awesome.
Great. How's that work? My wall's jumping up and blocking you.
Well,
okay.
There's infinite of that sort of suspension of disbelief. Bone Splitter on a River Boa. I mean, we got a long history in Magic of that sort of thing.
All right, Spreading Seas is going to go on the power plant. And you see, once again, Richard choosing preference with his Spreading Seas. While Tower is the better Tron land, he's choosing to get the Tron pieces that Ollie searches up, assuming that that's because those are the ones that Ollie is reasonably lacking.
Exactly. He searched for power plant, so it means he doesn't have another power plant in his hand.
But he might have another tower.
You don't know if he has a tower or not, so there you go.
And the longer he keeps Ollie off of Tron, the more activations he'll get off this Monastery Siege. Yep. That said, the Oblivion Stone is still looming, and even if Ollie doesn't ever make Tron, next turn he can make an Oblivion Stone and still crack it on turn 5.
We saw this recipe in game 2 where, Richard was disruptive, had an Aether Vial, things are looking pretty good, but left to his own devices, unpressured, Ollie can just overpower, bust through this sort of mana disruption.
Ollie's draw a copy of Urza's Power Plant, so that Spreading Seas won't last for long here.
Be careful. Just make sure, just double check.
It's the one with the pillars.
I mean,
oozy pillars.
Mismatched Tron art pieces should be a penalty anyway, because come on, just get the same art. I
actually don't own 4 of the same art, though. Those are the ones I have. I know you say, they're quarters.
Yeah, they're not that, it's not that expensive.
But I have to go, that's work.
No,
that's time.
I understand.
It's not.
SCGINVI.com, you can go get Magic Tron pieces right now. Never have to worry about this ever again.
I mean, there is something nice where there's 4 arts of each of them. So that kind of says, all right, there's some style points to it, though it's really confusing.
1 for each season.
Yeah. All right, Nature's Claim is the play from Ollie. We'll see whether he's going for Aether Vial or Monastery Siege. It's not going to matter. Swan Song's the play from Richard.
And if this was Ollie basically test spelling out a counterspell to set up Oblivion Stone, that's excellent sequencing.
I think he's actually was trying to claim the Spreading Seas and then was going to play the Tron piece and go for Karn.
Yeah. There's a lot of good routes here, but again, under no pressure, Ollie can be very selective about the way that he orders his spells.
Urza's Mine is the play for Ali, and now he'll just play Oblivion Stone. And this is what we saw. We saw this in game 1, where Ali's played an Oblivion Stone on turn 3 and activated it on turn 5. And even then, when he paid the 5 and cracked Oblivion Stone, you felt like the game was over.
Exactly, and he doesn't even have to break this Oblivion Stone and do anything.
He's at 20.
And this can't leave the table. There is nothing in Richard's deck to actually remove it from play or otherwise invalidate it. Ali has complete control of the way the game gets played from here. He's at 20, has not been attacked yet.
And a lot of reaction and value in Richard's hand. You see off Monastery Siege, he draws, I believe he has another copy of Swan Song or rather, he has another copy of Monastery Siege for sure, which this is, he needs to stay threat dense, and that's not happening right now.
Right. I mean, there's, I believe,
just the one.
2 in the main deck and then 1 more in the sideboard. So
sure.
I don't know the exact numbers, but I don't think Richard is advantaged playing that kind of game.
Has land 5. You saw I discard the extra Monastery Siege. And with 3 mana, he'll go for Marrow Regery. So now he has a threat on the board. We'll activate the Mutavault and get to attack. It's a 3/3 thanks to the Merfolk Lord. Well, Ali can take 3. He can also just chump block with the bird. It depends how committed he is to just activating Oblivion Stone here. I mean, that seems pretty great.
If Ali's got land number 5 rolled up in hand already, I don't mind blocking here. Richard's down to 1 card in hand. This is a pretty juicy board to Oblivion Stone, assuming you have any sort of reasonable follow-up.
Yeah, not only does he have land number 5, but it's the missing Tron piece.
Yeah, so this is a pretty easy chump block. I think you can blow up the Oblivion Stone and unleash
Continue.
hell.
Yeah, this is... and Richard able to defeat Tron in the quarterfinals. This is more of the matchup I expected when watching the quarterfinals.
That was the comment that I was about to make is, I would love to have seen the other quarterfinal match that ended too fast, because
this is what it feels like.
We're looking at 3 non-competitive games. And Richard has not had failed draws. He's had Spreading Seas or Seas Claim, I believe, all 3 games.
Turn 1 Aether Vials on the play.
He's had 2 turn 1 Aether Vials, and it just feels hopeless. Game 2 was pretty close. I mean, he had actually a shot to win that game.
Well, what decks like Merfolk actually benefit from in Modern is that there are not many decks that just play true board sweepers. I mean, okay, Tron plays Oblivion Stone. I mean, sometimes Jeskai plays Supreme Verdict. I believe Gerard Fabiano's Sultai deck plays Damnation. But that's about where your actual just, destroy everything's end. Yeah,
there's not a lot of it floating around the format. There's a lot of good 1-for-1 removal shows up all over the place.
Yep, Paths and Bolts are everywhere.
Yep.
You see Ali just tapping out, and he cracks the Oblivion Stone. Actually, didn't even have to pay that much for it, as he just had Tron. But he can tap all the lands, and that's what he'll do.
Whatever, it's fine at this point.
Yeah, you can overpay. That's fine. When Ali untaps, he will have 10 mana right now. Just believe talking. Now, there may be something. Ali has already received a warning, so it depends on how he declared it. I don't think there's any penalty with this.
Yeah, well, I think that you do have to announce if there's mana floating.
Okay.
So we'll see momentarily. It's not a huge deal because I think Ali was not intending on having any sort of follow-up play anyway.
It's not an illegal tap. It might be the judge just says, well, you had mana floating and now you lose it all.
Yep. There's no mana burn anymore. I mean, it doesn't functionally matter, but...
It means he can't play instants right now.
His deck with essentially no instants.
He has Nature's Claims after board. He may even have one in his hand. You see Karn hiding out in Ali's hand. He's at the ready. And the danger is that Ali has stated his life total has not budged since the beginning of the game. Regery and Seas Claim from Richard. Seas Claim, it is very much like Spreading Seas. It was printed in 9th edition, I believe. So he has some options. He can keep Ali off green, or he can try to take apart Ali's Tron.
I like going for Tron here.
I mean, so the issue is that say you keep Ali off Tron, he doesn't have replacement Tron. We're at 5 lands. You can just cast these cards face value, and it's not even bad. I mean, Like, Richard has no cards. If Ollie just plays, if his next 2 turns are land, Karn, that may be good enough.
The thing is, I think going after the Grove, all that really does is shut off Thragtusk, and it's Thragtusk versus the rest of Ollie's deck. And Richard could,
he draws Thragtusk.
Richard could conceivably beat a Thragtusk this game, but he's not beating any of the 7s or the 8s, so.
Ollie has Thragtusk, Oblivion Stone. The draw of Thragtusk, pretty reasonable right now.
He may still be better served casting the Oblivion Stone, though I feel like if you cast Thragtusk, it forces Richard to play whatever he follows up with, and then Oblivion Stone gets everything. Yep. And then winning from there is pretty trivial.
First life total change for Ollie of the game is going to be one that goes up, not down. Thragtusk takes him to 25. No land. We go back to Richard Adams. He's playing off the top of the deck. Back to the wall, down 0-2. He has a Regerie and 2 Mutavaults. And here will be Lord of Atlantis. A huge draw as now his Merfolk actually gain Island Walk. Seize Claim gives Ollie an island, and there's hope yet for Richard. He uses the Merfolk trigger to untap land, activates both Mutavaults. This is 11 power of Island Walking Merfolk in here.
Pretty big draw. A follow-up Lord next turn could be really problematic.
Yeah. So Ollie down to 14. Remember, Lord of Atlantis does not give himself Island Walk, so Richard does not. He has 14 power exactly on the board, but 3 of it can't get in, so it's still 2 turns away.
Yep.
So Ollie can raise it with his Oblivion Stone, but things got close with that draw. Pyroclasm on the draw for Ollie, and this is the double Lord problem you're talking about. Pyroclasm does nothing here.
It did something against the way Lord of Atlantis used to work. But after the creature addition errata.
Right, yeah, he used to not actually be a Merfolk. He was just a Lord, but now he is a Merfolk that gives other Merfolk +1/+1.
Goblin King, same dilemma. A little bit of an identity crisis earlier on.
Oblivion Stone is the play for Ollie, leaving up 2. He's got to dodge a Lord draw from Richard here.
And one of the, unsung heroes of this match for Richard, it's been Mutavault. I mean, definitely had a lot of conversation about the Seize Claim and Spreading Seas and the Aether Vial, but Mutavault's been kind of tough for Ollie to answer.
Richard draws an island. It's not going to do it. But it's really close. So even then, next turn, he could have a shot. If he can swing the team in. Okay, so if he swings the team right now, he puts Ollie to 3. Ollie has to block with Thragtusk. Then next turn he swings. If Ollie cracks Oblivion Stone, it'll kill his own beast token, and Richard will still kill him. So I think if he swings Lord of Atlantis, he's still in the clear here.
Yep.
But he has to make that play and swing the Lord in addition to the Regerie. And he's not going to do it. And now, so Ollie takes 11 unblocked. But
right, because next turn, when Ollie cracks the Oblivion Stone, he'll have a 3/3 left over. That blocks a Mutavault.
Right, so if he had traded the Lord of Atlantis makes this a lethal attack. So Ollie would have to trade it with Thragtusk.
Yep.
Now, granted, in that situation, Ollie may just Pyroclasm, which Richard doesn't know about. So I don't know if it actually works. But I think it's the play he wants to be making.
Yep. And now, basically, Ollie has to pass, fingers crossed, hope he survives the turn, and then can stabilize with a handful of big hitters.
Yeah, needs no Vapor Snags, please.
Yep.
That may be it.
The upshot here from Ollie's side is that drawing a Lord next turn for Richard doesn't really do very much because he can't play it pre-combat in the face of the Oblivion Stone.
Exactly. So Ollie, he's so committed to this Oblivion Stone, he's going to go ahead and swing Thragtusk.
Yep.
Sure. And even if Richard had made the attack with Lord of Atlantis, then yes, Ollie would have Clasmed, but then a top deck's Lord from Richard here would have won.
Yep. And I actually do like Ollie not attacking in this spot because it forces Richard to spend his mana next turn activating Mutavaults to force the issue. Otherwise, Richard can just attack with the 2 Lords. That forces the issue. And then if Richard has drawn things to do with his mana, the mana is available.
Draw from Richard. Didn't get a great look at it. I do not believe it's a land. We know that second face down card's an island. Will Richard suicide a Mutavault to put Ollie down to 1? It feels like he has to.
It turns on Vapor Snag, in theory, as a live draw.
He's going to be one short. Ali's play is going to be to crack Oblivion Stone.
Yes, that we know that. Richard knows that. And as you mentioned, the question now is, are you willing to fire up the 2 Mutavaults, knowing that one of them is going to get swallowed up to get Ali down to 1? The problem is it's possible, depending on how things go here, that even Vapor Snag won't be a kill, because if he falls to 1 but has one of his Planeswalkers to follow up, he can lock the game out that way, assuming he can get his own Beast token off the table at some point.
And Richard is going to cast Merfolk. He's going to, oh wow, okay. He's going to attempt to, he's casting the Master of the Pearl Trident and attempting to tap the Oblivion Stone with the Regerie trigger. So that'll force Ali to use the Oblivion Stone right now. He can't let that get tapped.
But that was, I'm not sure what this produces on Richard's end, because this play was forced anyway.
Well, he still gets to cast, yeah, it's still the same. Everything dies. Beast token in play. Now
no, excuse me. No, this is fine, because it's as part of the.
And now he has a
trigger.
land. He has a land.
Brilliant.
And that'll do it. Activate both Mutavaults and swing, and Richard takes game 3.
Yep. That is my fault for. I believe that Regerie was a CIP trigger, not as you cast trigger. No, that was really sweet. Very well played by Richard.
So Richard, not going to be swept here, gets game 3, and we'll move on to a 4th.
Yep. Great sequencing there.
Let's go back to the sideboard. Now Richard has his one on the play. He's going to have to win the last 2 on the draw.
Yep.
But great play by Richard Adams.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, perhaps guilty of calling it a little bit too early. I thought Ali had that game more or less locked up. But Richard was able to work his way through it, and you can see how important Mutavault is in the matchup. A lot of Ali's answers, we've seen Ali play Ugin, and then Mutavault still be a problem. We've seen it now with Oblivion Stone. That's been an issue as well. It would not surprise me if Ali went ahead here and brought in the 3rd copy of Ghost Quarter as a potential answer. The Eye of Ugin seems a little slow. I would be stunned if the Emrakul was still in his deck.
Yeah, I mean, the Ghost Quarters are great. These Mutavaults that Richard has had, yeah, are among the best cards in the matchup.
Yep.
It's very hard for Green Red Tron to actually remove a Mutavault.
So that was just a very well played game there by Richard. A tough one to work your way out of too. And there's really no margin for error, because if Ali gets to untap there, I think we're at kind of the point of no return.
Yeah, well,
there's a lot of Planeswalker,
Ugin
Worm Coil Engine. There's just too much coming down.
Yeah, we're talking about at that point where Richard would just need cards like Vapor Snag. And don't know whether he would get them. So this is the semifinals about to start game 4 of the Season 2 Invitational. Now, also, this is the last event of Season 2, but we have 2 more seasons coming up this year. So we go to Season 3. That's actually starting with the 2-day Modern Open that's ending today. I know Rudy Brixa, actually, the 12-0 into the top 8 of the Modern event. So he's making a great start to Season 3. But next week we'll be in Charlotte for a Modern Grand Prix. But then we go to our Open Series circuit starting June 20th and 21st with the Standard Open in Indianapolis.
Yeah, after that, we finish out June in Baltimore, take a couple of weeks off and go to Chicago for the first time in Open Series history. After Chicago, we go to Richmond for a Standard Open, Legacy in Washington, D.C., a Standard Grand Prix in London, back to Charlotte for a Modern Open Series event, and then the Season 3 Invitational in New Jersey. Standard and Legacy as the Invitational formats with a 2-day, $20,000 Standard Open Series event, the end of August, the 28th through the 30th.
All right, so if you want to make it to the next Invitational, we are traveling around the country to make our way to the Season 3 Invitational. I mentioned it in New Jersey, end of the summer, Standard and Legacy.
What's pretty fascinating about that game is that Richard actually won, what was that, turn 7-ish, turn 8? You kind of get, the way that I assume the matchup would play out is, Richard jumps on top of him with a good curve of Lords, breaks up his mana a little bit, or Ollie's draw doesn't have a fast Tron or no payoff card, and Richard can win a turn 4, a turn 5 kind of game. There he, actually took some lumps from Ollie on the way back.
Well, and it's Mutavault that lets him continue to play in the face of mass removal like that.
Yeah.
But you're right. You wouldn't expect these games to be going to turn 8s.
Yeah. And, again, I call into question, just like I did in the quarterfinal matchup, how valuable are these Thragtusks?
Well, he didn't do too much there. I mean, so gaining 5 life against Merfolk is, while good, and I guess it did buy Ollie a turn here, when Merfolk starts hitting, it actually hits very, very hard.
Yeah, so far in the games that we've watched, it's felt like Richard has basically gone, no attacks, set up, set up, set up. Here's 12 points of damage. Here's 14 points of damage. And Thragtusk is a lot less impressive in those kind of games than it is when someone's hitting for 2 or 3 at a time. The island walk plus turn all of your lands into islands kind of thing that Richard's going for as well makes it hard for Thragtusk to block as well.
So Richard on 6. But yeah, it is. It's not a 2, then 4, then 6 kind of aggro.
Right. Especially not when Richard's playing against Pyroclasm. He's going to be very careful about measuring his threats when he can avoid it. And that plays further and further into the whole, I'm going to wait, and then I'm going to burst you down.
Actually, it's like 5 cards for Richard Adams here in the 4th game. I'm not sure he's even going to keep stop at that.
It's not a good look.
I don't think he has lands. But he's going to go for it. It's got some spreading seas. And we're starting with Ollie. He starts with Chromatic Sphere. Over to Richard. Did draw a land. He'll play Mutavault and pass. So he'll be in the game, but we'll see how much. Chromatic Sphere is going to tap. It's going to make a green, draw a card. You see the power plant in play and mine and tower already in Ollie's hand. He just has a natural turn 3 Tron.
Yep, and a Karn as a payoff.
Expedition map and a pass. Yeah, turn 3 Karn on the play. It's one of the things that this deck can do. Even if Ollie didn't naturally have the Tron, there's a chance with maps that he just has turn 3 anyway. Richard will keep him off beat as much as he can. That's going to be a spreading seas for the power plant and a pass back. But Ollie, not to be deterred. 2 copies of tower, another copy of power plant in his hand, another copy of mine.
He's got Tron, and he can definitely slog his way through whatever mana disruption Richard's bringing to the table. But Ollie's got nothing going on besides Karn. I believe his hand is all land besides the Planeswalker.
Yeah, I mean, so he had 2 copies of every Tron piece plus Karn.
Yep,
now,
which is a fine 7-card hand. You're not going to send that one back, but it is vulnerable if something happens to Karn.
Unified Will here. Richard could activate Mutavault, cast Unified Will. Maybe could get it. He'll play Master of the Pearl Trident, leaving up the Mutavault and pass. And now we go toward Ollie. Karn will be coming.
Yep.
We'll see him wonder if he may just get something like Eye of Ugin or Ghost Quarter perhaps with this map. Maybe a green source as well. Be interesting. I don't believe he gets a Tron piece. Yeah, and it's Ghost Quarter. That'll cover the Mutavault.
Makes a lot of sense given the problems that Mutavault's caused him in these games and the fact that Richard already has one.
Interesting. Eye of Ugin actually not a particularly relevant card in this matchup.
And going and getting the Ghost Quarter here does set up Ollie to play Karn and plus Karn if he wants to, knowing that he can fight over the leftovers in play.
Well, here's Tron. Checks. Mine Tower Power Plant. All right. And it's 8. No, this isn't Karn. This is Ugin.
Yeah, that was an Ugin off the top, and I think that in conjunction with the Ghost Quarter for that Mutavault, there's no coming back from this.
A timely draw from Ollie Antrazi. Ugin will shoot down the Master of the Pearl Trident. Richard will activate Mutavault.
I think that there was a low percentage chance that Richard could have battled this game through Karn.
But that Ugin.
I think Ugin's too much.
Richard plays another Mutavault. He does have 2 islands, 2 Mutavaults again. He's going to activate 1 Mutavault. It'll swing.
Knock Ollie down to 18 or Ugin down to 7, neither of which is great.
See a top 8 in the Modern Open this weekend, also for Andrew Boswell in addition to Rudy Brixa. So looking to be quite the top 8. I believe Dylan Donegan may be on top of it. So we see Phantasmal Image cast by Richard. It's going to be copying
the Mutavault. It's a little funky.
Yeah, it'll be colorless then.
There's a lot of kind of odd interactions with cloning effects, and this would cloning effects and man lands are a funky combination in the rules.
It's going to be a Mutavault that does not turn back into a land. It's a 2/2 with all creature types. Colorless. Colorless being important here.
Yep.
And here come more Planeswalkers. Karn joins Ugin.
Unified Will. None of the counter spells here are going to be effective, and I don't think Richard's got it available anyway.
Well, I believe that the image is summoning sick.
Yeah, so
he can't use it for mana. It is a land. Or no, sorry. It can still tap for mana. It is a creature, but it is summoning sick as a creature.
Yep.
And you see Karn exiling away the Mutavault, Ghost Quarter covering the other Mutavault, Ugin plussing and shooting at Richard. And just not much going on here. You see, just saying, all the stuff's come down.
Yep.
He'll extend the hand, so there you have it. Ali Antrazi 3-1 defeats Richard Adams and is our first finalist here at the Season 2 Invitational.
Congratulations to Richard Adams. The matchup didn't look great in those 4 games. The 3 games that Richard lost were pretty strongly in Ali's favor. But you had to give him a lot of credit for the way he played that 3rd game. Because I honestly thought he was dead to rights at various points there. And he definitely knew what his outs were. I think that he played as well as possible. He did beat this matchup in the quarterfinals. But Ali's hands were just too redundant in getting to Tron.